What is going on, guys? Happy Wednesday. Hopefully everyone's doing pretty good today. Let's pop up chat. So today, I want to talk a bit about calcium reactors, tuning, kind of an update on the Alkatronic, and just go over some of the questions I've been getting all about this stuff recently. Yeah, so just give a couple minutes, just to get everything set up, just finished working, had to run over here and get the live stream prep, so just about ready to roll. Hopefully the wireless mic, everything's working pretty good. Happy Wednesday. What's going on, Dutch Boy Reef? Welcome. So I'm trying to stream from my laptop, and I put my TV on YouTube so I can actually see the comments. So hopefully this will work. Sorry I missed last week's stream. I had a septum surgery, so they operated on my nose, and I was down for the count. So that was interesting. What's going on, Philip Wells? Gabriel, welcome, welcome. As you guys can see, the tank is starting to get all set up and rolling now. I've been working on tuning all the stuff inside of it and slowly plugging away at cleaning it up, which has been good. Sound is great, excellent. And I also put a really long cable on the web camera so I can move around, talk about different things, and show you guys a few different things. So I've been getting lots of random questions on the build lately, and I would say probably the calcium reactor setup and tuning and Alkatronic have been fairly common ones, a few about the dosing pump. So those are kind of things I figure would be good topics for today. What's going on, Anthony Hicks? Welcome, man, welcome. So to give you guys a bit of a, see if my cable reaches. All right, we're testing this out. So give you guys a bit of a preview. So I have the Vertex calcium reactor. And how this works, if you guys have never used a calcium reactor, I get a lot of questions about calcium or dosing pumps versus calcium reactors, so we can dig into that a bit if you want. But essentially what happens is if you look inside of here, you got this little bubble counter. And this is every one of those is just a little bubble of CO2. So it's slowly letting CO2 into here. Now this chamber gets sucked in, and you can see on the top, and it gets sucked into the side of this tube. Now, what this is going to do, this is your little miniature return pump for this reactor. So it sucks water in and then pushes it all the way up to there. So as it sucks it in, you're sucking in the CO2 and blending it with the water. You can see like little gas bubbles inside of here. And it's constantly mixing and mixing and mixing it until the CO2 is making the water more acidic, and it's very slowly dissolving the media inside of the chamber. And as it dissolves it, it's pulling out that alkalinity and magnesium's a different chip, but calcium alkalinity out of it, and then you drip that back in your tank, and that's called the fluid. I also have magnesium chips in here, so I'm using two little fishies, Remag and Reborn. You can see little white kind of rocks throughout it, and those are mag for magnesium. So that's kind of how you're getting your magnesium out of it. Anthony, good evening. Can you make a video besides the live stream? I sure can. What do you want a video on? Let me know exactly kind of like what topic or what you want, and I can definitely add that to the list. Hello from Costa Rica. Welcome, John. Welcome, Irith. Juan, I think it's Juan. All right, but yeah, if you have a very specific question or you want me to go over something more in detail, I can definitely make a future video about that later. Very clean, like, oh, it's getting there. It's still a bit of a rat's nest, but check this out. I've been stoked for this one. If you check out all of the reactors, I was waiting for these little brackets for ages to show up. So I got all my power supplies I mounted underneath the tank. I still got to finish cleaning it up, but so we got all the power bricks, and these are like little took. They're made for the Vector or Vortex or P40, whatever. But I got a whole whack of those guys I ordered, and they finally showed up yesterday. So I've been working on doing this. So I got that 2-inch bar, so they're all tucked away out of sight. You only see them if you're really low. So I still got to finish cleaning up the wires, but I got from there all the way over just about cleaned up. So now it's just slowly figuring out how to cram it all in there. And it's that little wire channel has been awesome because it's a good way to hide all your wiring and your cables. So that part is getting there. What's going on, K-Town Reefer? Can you also place mag in the small container in the second chamber? Yes, you could. I don't know if there's any benefit. Actually, Ben, that's a good question for you. So right now I have the mag mixed. I believe I mixed in all of the chambers. Like, is there any benefit to having it just in the one container versus having it everywhere? I'm not too sure on that one. I figure it's all the same stuff at the end of the day. It all cycles through the same areas. So yeah, if you look inside of there, those little whites is all the mag, and I'm fairly certain I just dumped some in here as well. But if say your mag was too low and you want to add more, I mean that little cup's a perfect spot to add more to it because it'd be easier to get to it. Complete tuning of calcium reactor. Can you get an oversized reactor? Yes, you can. Okay, so let's talk about that a bit. I apologize, I'm still a bit stuffy. I have not been allowed to blow my nose in over a week now. Fun. Who made your stand? I designed it and actually had a family friend weld it up for me. So the guy that's getting my old tank is the one that made me the new stand. Keep of how fast the mag is being used. Ah, good point. All right, so what Ben was just saying is in the Vertex calcium reactor, in your secondary chamber, you got a smaller container on top, which is this guy. And if you do use it for something dedicated like magnesium, you can kind of watch the mag on its own. Then it's kind of an easy visual way to top it off. So that makes sense. Okay. All right. When I top off more, I'll add it to there. Thank you for that one, Ben. Have you seen a difference in how often the heater turns on that you put the bricks underneath the tank? I was really wondering about that. I only did it yesterday, so I can't say yet. However, there is basically an inch of wood between it, so that is going to insulate a lot of it. But if it did heat my tank up a little bit, my heater was used less, that would just be an added bonus. So let's see if we can show you guys that one. Let me pull up the phone. Okay, we're gonna get fancy here. And all right, there we go. Okay, so one super cool thing about this. So right now I'm using the the calcium reactor is what's doing all my dosing. It's maintaining everything inside of the tank. It's keeping all my levels stable. It's they have a certain chunk of trace elements you get with it. And what are you using for safety running your reactor? Okay, so it does have a pH probe in the top of the reactor, and that is controlled by the apex. If the pH ever gets too low, it will turn off the reactor, and it's going to do that just so there's no risk of it melting. So right now, if we look at the pH inside of my calcium reactor, it's been holding at, 6.8. There was a bit of a spike, 6.85, so 6.83. So for the most part, it's been holding right around 6.83. Now, if I go into the code for this one, so my CO2, I actually have it set a bit lower, but where the bubble count is, it sits a bit higher. So, okay, so if the pH ever rises above 6.78, it turns it on. And if it ever drops below 6.72, so it's melting it too fast, then it will turn it off. That way you don't melt your media reactor. So that is one of the big things that's kind of like the saving or the backup for the calcium reactor. And with that, if you look at the top of it, you absolutely do not need to have the pH probe in there, but it definitely makes your life easier. So there's two ways of looking at it. You could let your pH turn your reactor on and off constantly and let that control kind of it. Or another way to do is control the output or your fluid rate. So you have your drip that goes into the tank. And on mine, you can kind of see it in the back there. Can I see it in the back? Okay, so the very end line, that drip, 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 drip. So that's the fluid coming out of my calcium reactor, and that's what's called your fluid. Now, I got this really sweet pump that makes it super easy to tune it in. So this guy is called the Kamoer. It's the Kamoer FX-STP is the model number for it. And if I want to adjust how much a fluid's coming out, I literally just turn the dial. So right now it's at 24 mils per minute. If I turn it down a couple, you're like, oh, 22. Like, oh, my demands are increasing. Let's raise it to 28. So super duper easy to tune it. So this thing, I think it makes it really easy to tune a calcium reactor. So awesome little product. And it's not the cheapest, it's like 200 and something, but if you go look at like a Masterflex or one of those kind of medical ones, they're like $800, $1,000. So relative to that ad, it's actually not bad at all. But this has made it incredibly easy to tune a calcium reactor. Now, the other really cool thing is with the Alkatronic, I can test, it automatically tests every 12 hours. So I can make a small tweak to it, and then I'll just look at my trends and see if it changed my alkalinity in my tank. How do I know how much calcium I add per drop in a calcium reactor? How much calcium do I know I'm adding per drop? Okay, so with the calcium reactor, you kind of start off in the middle. Like you want to start off somewhere around the 20 mils a minute. And the pH that you're targeting inside your reactor, you don't need a pH probe in it. You could have a little cup afterwards and check it, but it's easier if you have one in it. And you want it to be whatever the manufacturer of the media recommends. So in this one, I think it was 6.75 or something like that. So I put it somewhere around there, and I'm running it a bit higher because it's working. So why dissolve faster if I don't need to? And so basically, you're just going to test it. You don't really want to use your calcium reactor to do a big swing or make adjustments. You want to maintain. So you test your alkalinity, your calcium, wait 24 hours, test it again. If it's raising up too much, you got to turn down your drip rate or lower or up your pH a bit. And if it's not raising quick enough, then you got to add a little bit more. So there's two ways to think about it. You could, sorry, one sec. So when you are dosing, you can get a higher alkalinity / calcium out of your media by dissolving it faster, so increasing your CO2, or you can control how much your tank's getting by how much of that effluent you're dripping into the tank. So ideally, once you have one of them tuned in, is easier if you just adjust the other one. So since I can really easily control my drip rate, I just keep my pH stable. And then from there, all I got to do is add a little more drip rate or turn the drip rate down to adjust my calcium alkalinity output per day. And you could, now if I don't have that, if I just had a regular feed pump, you can still use a needle valve. It's not as consistent, but it still works. So that's one way of doing it, right? But there will become a certain point where it won't be able to keep up, and I may not see the changes I want. I might have to change my pH level inside of the reactor to make it a little more acidic and dissolve a bit more once I've pushed it too far in that. Tico Reefer, what is going on? Sonic, Davis, K-Town, what's going on, guys? So that's kind of how it works. Now, I get asked all the time, what is the difference or what's better, calcium reactor versus dosing? It's kind of different ways to accomplish a similar thing, right? If you're at the end of the day, both methods are adding your calcium and your alkalinity, and potentially mag to your tank. So either way, you're dosing the same stuff to your tank. Why the one benefit that I like about a calcium reactor is you're doing it 24 hours a day. It's not just, if you're doing it by hand once a day, or if you're doing it with the doser, maybe you have 24 doses per day or 12, depends on your doser and how you've set it up, right? So I'm literally dosing a drop every second or two to my tank. So it's just more stable. So if I look at the other fun tool one look has, we look at the alkalinity. So ignore that big dip. That was when I unplugged the machine. It wasn't sending the reading out. So if I look at one day, okay, so last night as 8.59 and this morning I'm 8.5. So that is 0.5, 0.59, so less than 0.1 of a difference. So super solid, super solid. So we look at everything. So this day, so 8.36, and that was 8.36. If that was Saturday, that's Sunday, 8.5, a little bit of a jump, but it's just super duper consistent and stable. Now I did do a little 5-gallon water change somewhere in here, so that's probably what that little spike was just from the salt. But overall, it's incredibly how stable it is. So out of the last, 6 days, I can't look at that 7, that skews it. So let me see if I can shrink this. Okay, yeah, so minimum 8.28 to 8.59. So it's a 0.3 swing, I guess, over the past week. But generally, once I stopped bargaining with it, it's like less than 0.1 of a DKH swing. So it's just incredibly stable. And that, to me, makes a big difference. Big fan of the stability. Let's lock that rotation. There you go. Now, Alkatronic is another one I get lots of questions about recently. So I'll show you guys that one as well. Give that a sec to connect. Do you have the elk probe set? Okay, so I don't have the Neptune alkalinity probe. That one is not released yet. What I'm using is called the Alkatronic, and that's made by Focustronic. And this is an automated alkalinity tester, so I'll show you guys that in a sec. Wait for this guy to load up. Okay. All right, so you can see my last test is 8.51, and there's my stability line if I look at the show table for graph. Okay, so we have on 1208, so 8.39, 8.39, so super stable, 8.5, over 7. So overall, it keeps it super duper stable. Now, I haven't used the Alkatronic to dose yet. I've only used it just for monitoring, and I've been tweaking off of it. One of my buddies has an Alkatronic as well on his tank, and he's been using it to dose. So I actually want to make it over there one of these days and follow up with him and see how it's working out for him. What's up, ReefDudes? What's going on, Curious Reefer, Marine Addict? Thanks for explanation, no problem. If I'm not explaining anything 100%, or you want me to dig into it deeper, let me know. But yeah, so that is last measure. So automated alkalinity testing is so nice to have, especially for tuna calcium reactor, because I could literally just watch this. I have my little graph, and if over time I see it start creeping up, all I know is like, oh, I gotta go turn the feed pump so that my drip rate down a mil or two. So it's literally like click done. So easy to adjust it. So this is like the dream combination right now. It took me a while to finally build this up, but it's like so stable and so amazing. So that part I definitely love. As for somebody asked me a question about the Alkatronic earlier, so let me quickly look what it was. I think they're asking what fast mode was. I'm actually not sure. I have not used that one. A couple of ones I'll explain in this. So aquarium volume, so roughly 160 gallons for the display. The measure interval, so I have it set for 12 hours. So every 12 hours the test right now. Reference value, this is kind of like your acceptable range that you claim. I should probably tighten this one up now. So let's upgrade this to about 8. So we'll do between 8 and 9. So I don't want my alkalinity to go outside that range. Okay. The one below it's called action mode, and action mode's if you're letting it dose for you. So what I could do, if say I wasn't using the Kamoer, it actually has a Bluetooth plug that came with the Alkatronic, and I could plug that up and let the Alkatronic control it. If I was doing that, I'd probably let it test every 2 hours, say, for instance. But since I'm not doing that, I'm not too worried about it, but I just let it do every 12 hours for monitoring's sake. So you have it set up on the Apex? Yes. Okay. So I have one of the outputs of the Alkatronic wired into one of the pH ports into the Apex. That way I can open the Apex app and see my trending of everything. Are you running a carbon doser? No, I'm not. I did look at the carbon doser. A lot of people do seem to love it. However, one, it's not cheap, and two, I kind of figured the Kamoer, the FX-STP. There's a link in the description if you guys want to read all the details and specs on it. But that's the feed pump that I'm using. That was one cheaper than the carbon doser, and I feel you get more bang for your buck from it. I feel controlling the flow is more valuable than the tiny variance there may or may not be in the bubble rate. So that's kind of why I decided to go for that instead of the carbon doser. Yeah, so in the Alkatronic app, so reference value, that's kind of like your range, and it will take action if it falls outside of it. Action mode would be if it want it to dose for you. So if I have it controlling my calcium reactor, I can have it turn my feed pump on or off based on if it's too high or too low. So that's one way you could do it. Washout mode, what that does is if it tests and it's more than 0.1 of a difference, it will retest just to confirm that it is actually the value that it thinks and not just an error in testing. And it's just if you're using it to dose, then definitely want to use that one. Baseline calibration, if you somehow buggered up your reagent, then you can kind of set an offset so you're not wasting anything. Alert, same thing. You can tell it how much stuff's in your container. That way it can alert you when you let you know when to do it. Dosetronic mode. So I don't think it's released quite yet, but they're coming out with a doser that can sit on top of the unit, which has 4 or 5 dosing heads. And you could use that to do all your dosing for you. So that's kind of a cool thing. So that'll be neat when that comes out. So that's the Dosetronic. Wi-Fi, if you want it. So there's the 2 plugs, so you can have control items. Wi-Fi, just if you want to put on your internet. That way it can upload yourself online. So I think if you go on the Alkatronic website, there's a cloud thing so you could view remotely. Same with upload mode, auto update mode. That is kind of the main gist of it. Test pump accuracy, prime hoses, calibration, all that jazz. But yeah, the biggest thing for me though is just having that constant testing. I'm terrible. I'm trying to make myself every few weeks just go for a full range of tests and do it, but you kind of get lazy because you can, yeah, automate it. Love it. Automation's great. What are you going to do skin your stand with? I'm still debating what to skin the stand with. I was looking at maybe like a countertop material type of stuff, like not they call it like arborite or laminate or whatever it is, but maybe that just get some wood panels and just do like either like a matte white or a gloss white. I don't know. I'm still debating how to skin the stands, but it's going to be some kind of a probably just a solid panel. I just don't know what I'm going to coat it with or what I'm going to do with it yet. They're also, I haven't seen it in person yet, but they have that PVC board that's kind of like woodish and it's waterproof. That's another stuff I might want to look into. Marine Depot's control boards are made out of it, so I might see if I can get one of those guys and give that baby a test out for some mounting, and also let me see what that material is like, and yeah, see how it looks inside. So that might be a potential option. I was watching your CoreBox Wi-Fi review an hour ago, so what made you switch to the Kamoer? Okay, so the Kamoer isn't necessarily like a regular dosing pump. A regular dosing pump is for I want to dose this much this hour, this much that hour, that much that hour. The Kamoer is a continuous duty pump, so it's made to run 24 hours a day. If I was to run a regular dose pump 24 hours a day, it'd wear out the heads really quickly because they're not like proper rollers or like little rubber wheels and stuff, and it's just not necessarily built for that. So they're different pumps for a different purpose. It's all good. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. Chillin', didn't know such a thing. Yeah, so lots of cool stuff out there. Okay, what am I doing to stabilize my pH? So it's right now just Refugium. So let me show you guys that. So it's gonna kill the screen share. Okay. So right now, I was running just like a cheap par 38 grow light just to keep the shade alive for pods while the turf scrubber has been cycling. Now it's actually pretty much fully cycled now. I looked at it the other day. There's lots of lovely stuff growing. I don't know if I'll pick it up on camera, but it's all kinds of good old nasty algae growing in there. So this thing's starting to do the job. Probably due to take this out and clean it, but I gotta do a video on that, so I haven't touched it yet. So this guy's been doing really well. So this I've been leaving on 24/7. This guy's probably gonna get taken out soon, but this guy's just been running at nighttime. Just kind of keep the nutrients low until this thing kicked in. So it took about, I'm going to say about 3.5 weeks or so, then I really looked and started seeing the algae in there. So that is basically keeps my pH a lot higher having the drip scrubber running. And we'll go look at that on the Apex in a sec. On my skimmer, I have one of these little tiny lines is runs to outside air. So that's the other thing that helps keep the pH higher. So I got two tubes that come in here. And so the black one is running off ozone and the clear one runs outside. I got a little, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little tiny wire that kind of runs all the way around the edge of the baseboard and sneaks in behind the fireplace. And that goes to the back. And this, I got ozone. So I run ozone for about 4 hours every day. And that's kind of like basically a carbon replacement in a way. Kamoer, are you pulling or pushing? So I'm currently pushing. I debated pulling it. I still might try that one day. When I did try pulling it, I couldn't quite get the air all purged through it 100% yet, so it was making a bit of noise, so pushing it was quieter, so that's why quieter one for now. What's going on, Dave? Same results adding calcium alkalinity and meg by dosing pump. You can, you definitely can. If you have a smaller tank, I would just stick to a dosing pump. On a larger tank, calcium reactors become cheaper. It really depends on how much you're dosing, right? If I'm dosing 20 mils a day, it's probably not a big deal. If I'm dosing 100 mils a day, that could get a lot more expensive. You're going to burn through all your solutions a lot quicker. Where with a calcium reactor, I mean, that CO2 bottle cost me 30 bucks to fill it. That'll probably last a year. That media, I bet you I'll get a year and a half out of it, and that's 70, 80, whatever. So it might cost me 100, 130 bucks for a year to dose my tank. Where if you're buying expensive jugs that you're burning through, that could be a lot more expensive. So calcium reactors are more money up front, but they're cheaper long term, especially on a large system. Now it does kind of depend on how much you're dosing and all that stuff. So it depends. I find there's less buggering with it. When I have a dosing pump, I figure out how to tweak it every once in a while as stuff grows, where calcium reactor just works. I don't have to worry about dosing, whatchamacallit, as much. Like magnesium separately and just different things. So I don't know. I just find it works smoother. They both 100% work though. I mean, on my nano tank, I'm just dosing. So it's to an extent it's personal preference. Okay, now you're asking about my pH. So pH on the tank has been actually really good. So definitely spike. So my high in the middle of the day is around 8.2, and at nighttime 8.13 was my low. So that's really good. And all the probes are calibrated less than a month ago, so that one's been wicked. My pH is actually higher now, oddly, than before. So no complaints on that one. So if I look at all time, yeah, 8.12 is my minimum, 8.24 is my max, and 8.16. Now I am also running the media inside of the calcium reactor a little bit higher. So I think it says 8.7. I think I'm running around 6.8 right now. Now see how there's two chambers. So that secondary chamber, so once your effluent comes out of your main chamber, it gets pushed through the second chamber. And it works all the way up through there. And that second chamber is going to help absorb any extra CO2 and melt that little bit. So you're getting a little more bang for your buck out of your calcium reactor. And it's also going to help raise the pH up higher because you're absorbing a lot of it into that media. So you get a higher pH in the end of it by having those dual chambers. So there's definitely a benefit to having that second chamber on a calcium reactor. A few other trace elements from a calcium reactor. Yeah, so you will get certain trace elements as well from a calcium reactor. If it's not all the trace elements you need, because there is stuff from the soft tissue in the corals that you're not necessarily getting, but there's other items like potentially like strontium and other ones that would be inside of the bones of the coral skeletons. And that's the media is essentially coral skeletons. You're dissolving old skeletons, taking those nutrients that had bound up in it, and then giving it back to the corals. So I guess the media I'm using is two little fishies reborn. So I guess it's kind of like reborn life to the old skeletons. Give to your future new skeletons. So you are kind of reusing it in a way. I'm still on the fence if I'm going to dose other trace elements on top of it. I still have a free dosing head there, so I might do one. I don't know. I'm trying to find if there's a really cool all-in-one one I should use. Or, I mean, I could really just do a water change once in a while and be all good. So that's the only thing. But I mean, even with dosing, you still have to dose your other elements afterwards. So do you leave your dose elk? So that leave you to dose. No, okay. So the calcium reactor is your alkalinity, your magnesium, your calcium, and some trace elements in it. On that note of trace elements, where's my little box? Finally broke down, and I'm finally going to try one of these tests. So finally going to try one of the ICP tests. I'd probably let the tank run a few more weeks first to make sure everything's stabilized and level and find out what all is in there. So if there is something that I'm not getting from it, then this is how we're going to find out. So that's pretty cool. So I'm kind of excited just to find out. I use probably going to say probably like half new water, old water. When I move the tank over, so that's why I'm just kind of letting it sit a bit longer, and then yeah, I don't know. We'll see what's in there. We'll see if anything's lacking. If I need to do something separately, hopefully this will let me know. Then we'll go from there. As for that, yeah. So Kamoer, I'm definitely digging the Kamoer pump. I think that's makes it extremely easy to deal with calcium reactors. Like super duper easy to tune it. Apex list. There we go. Yeah, so 6.83, so that's where mine's been at. Higher pH in the calcium reactor also means higher pH rate in your fluid and less affecting the tank. So if you can get a higher effluent rate without needing to lower it too low, then that's extra benefit for the pH side of things. Alkatronic has made my life so easy for tuning since I get an update on my alkalinity every 12 hours, which is like game changer, easy to maintain it. So that part's pretty wicked. I am really curious to go see my buddies though, that he's letting it do all his dosing for him. So that'll be interesting. Seems like it's going pretty well, so I'll probably go over and shoot some video whenever I see him next. Bubble collector. I think I showed this one on. I did took that. So this is normally to control. So when you're regular setup with this, if you're not using one of these pumps, you're using a feed pump. This is a needle valve, and you can tune it to see how much water is allowed to exit the reactor and drip in your tank. Now, since I'm not doing that because if you're using a continuous duty pump, this is kind of pressurized because it crushes the tube as it does it. You do not want to use a needle valve with that. So on mine, I actually hooked it up off the little recycle port. So this guy is connected to back up and over to here. So this goes from there to there basically. And this just lets me adjust how much gas it's allowed to recirculate through the reactor. I did this because if it's wide open, sometimes I'll hear ear bubbles and it'll make it a little bit louder. And I can tone it down so that it can't have quite as much suction to recirculate that, which just makes it quieter. So I just used that because it was already there, gave it a purpose. But normally if I'm using just a regular feed pump for this or like a little aqua lift or something else, you could use this to control your drip rate off of that. But yeah, so if you are using a peristaltic pump, do not use that with it. So just tip for any guys setting up one. Oh, Apex dashboard's in the way. Sorry about that. Let me kill that one. And gone. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, so with this one, if I was using a regular pump and not a peristaltic pump, this is how I'd adjust my effluent drip rate. Now, just that one note is make sure you guys do not use this on your output. You don't want to restrict your output if you're using a peristaltic pump. Keep that in mind because that could mess with it. You could overpressurize it, bad things happen. So because I'm using a peristaltic pump, I don't need this for my output. And what I did this port right here is just right at the top, so it allows it to recirculate gas back into here. So it can suck in extra gas and make more efficient use out of it. And I put this in there so I can adjust how much it sucks. If it's wide open, sometimes I'll hear little air bubbles, and then by tuning it back a bit, it allowed me to keep it dead quiet. Now, if I can sneak the camera in here, there we go. So this guy is, sneak it in there inside the Alkatronic. So what this guy does is basically an automated tritation tester. Now, instead of looking at a color, this does it by a pH value. So you got a pH probe inside. When this turns on, it sucks all the water out of here, clears it out, and it refills it with tank water up to the, I think it's 50 or 60 mil mark. And then there's a little pill in there and it's a magnetic stir. So this will turn on and it will slowly add drops of titration until it reaches a certain pH. And then it can tell how much reagent it's used. And then it can figure out exactly what your alkalinity level is. So this is basically taking the work that you do manually and automating it. Now below it, I got two little containers here. So this guy is my reagent for the Alkatronic, and that just sucks out of there. And that one is probably going to be amino acids. Well, it is amino acids, but I haven't actually hooked it up yet. So I'll probably hook that up to the doser sometime in the near future. I'm still waiting to slowly clear up my little rat's nest of wires. But yeah, super stoked. I spent the last night or two just working on cleaning up all these power bars. So I'm hoping I do get a bit more warmth in the tank out of it. That'll be sweet if it does. But we shall find out. Okay, comments, haven't looked at them in a while. Should you wait to do ICP test a few weeks after water changes, see what depletes? Always wonders when is the best time to send it in. Well, I think with an ICP test, I don't, yeah, I think you'd want to do before a water change, but you want your tank to be set in whatever it's doing. You want everything to be settled. That way there's no big missing thing, or I don't know. So the biggest thing I would say is you want it to be your tank just like established. You don't want to do a big change right before you send it in because that could mess with it. So you'd want it to be fairly just level into whatever you're doing for it. When your tank is doing its best. Yeah, that's true. Very true. Is that a check valve on the Kamoer? Nope, it's not a check valve. The little valve on the Kamoer is just my little adapters to make it work with RODI line. So if you look on the back, this is just a connector. So I have this barb fitting that goes to a push connector, and then the push connector connects to my RODI line. And that just loops around and back to here. So they're just little adapters, so I can use different types of tubing on it. And then the suction line just goes straight down, and it's on a little hard tube line in the sump. And then this guy is the feed line for my water samples for the Alkatronic. There's a little pre-filter on the bottom that just sucks it straight from there up and over into the Alkatronic unit. A couple people are asking earlier about, yeah, so I don't have the carbon doser. I have that guy. I think it's the American Marine pinpoint regulator, I believe it is. So I just got that guy for my little CO2 regulator, super compact. What I liked about this guy is it uses DC instead of AC. I've heard stories about some of the AC ones heating up and sticking on, where the DC ones don't really have that heat and sticking issue. So far it's been a pretty solid option. I've had this one for a couple of years now. It's been going strong. I'd be curious about that as well. Alongside dissolves organic breakdown, particulate formation, think iodine, etc. Yeah, so there is other stuff that may or may not be related. But yeah, so I don't know. In a couple weeks, I think I'll do Triton test and I'll see if anything is lacking in the tank. And then if it is, then maybe that will lead me to some certain trace element to dose on top of what I've already got going. How's my laptop doing for battery? 40% left. Perfect. Aside from that, yeah, everything's been going pretty well. Still got to figure out how to skin the stand. But yeah, I'm happy I swapped back to a calcium reactor. I was torn dosing calcium reactor. That has been a bit of a struggle to decide on which one for the last little while. But I'm pretty stoked for it. It's just easy, simple, especially with the Alkatronic testing for me. It's just like, oh, little swing. Okay, let me tweak that, done. So it makes life super duper easy. So I am digging that for sure. Aside from that, what else do we got? I don't know. That's the main part about it. Let me know if you guys have any other questions on it. It looks like the stream's a little bit jerky on my TV, just probably from doing this over Wi-Fi. So lesson learned, don't do it on Wi-Fi. No worries later, Dave. So I'm probably not going to go too much longer. I am still kind of recovering from surgery last week, but get back at her soon. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap her up in a few here. If you guys do want to know any specs on the products, I did link the ones that I'm using for the setup below. If you got other questions on it I haven't answered, let me know in the chat, or if you're watching this on the replay, let me know in the comments later, and I'll definitely answer them or do another future video or stream more dedicated on specifics if you guys got any specific things. Another big one is it is Merry Fishmas. So if you guys have not entered any of the contests yet, this week's video is for CopaPods, and that's from copapods.ca and copapods.com. So there's gonna be two packages giving away, one for Canada, one for US. So if you haven't entered yet, get in there. And the previous week's video is for the eCoral dosing pump, which has been a pretty awesome pump. So if you haven't entered that, there's two awesome things I'm going to be giving away pretty quick. So make sure you guys get in there. And you can also, there's going to be another one. I haven't done a video on it, but I'll give you a sneak peek. Now, I also have this guy, which has been pretty sweet so far. It's Poseidon Salinity Pen Plus. So this is a quote-unquote lab-grade pen. And I got this guy from Big Chill Frags. That's in Canada. But I'm also going to be doing a review on this one now. I've been using it for a good month now, so I feel it's valid to finally do a video on it. Yeah, it's a slideshow. Yeah, no good. Sorry about that. I don't know if it's the internet or the laptop. I normally stream from my desktop, which is a powerhouse. My laptop, not so much. So I will go back to the desktop for next week. Let's try something new today. So anyways, I'm going to be doing a review on this guy probably this weekend, and this will be another giveaway. So going to be Salinity Pen, Doser, Pods, lots of good stuff coming down. So make sure you guys are entering the weekly contest because I'm trying to do a contest each week for the month. So I think it's pretty awesome. So hopefully you guys get in there and you guys win some awesome stuff.